The War Council chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence as Commander Vexithor's tactical briefing stuttered to a halt. Every eye, compound, infrared, and otherwise, turned toward the entrance where Captain Sarah Chen stood, datapad in hand, looking entirely unbothered by the interruption she'd caused. It wasn't Sarah who had stopped the meeting. It was what flanked her on either side. Two Krathix juveniles, each standing nearly as tall as Sarah's shoulder, prowled into the room with the fluid grace of apex predators. Their obsidian scales caught the overhead lights, and their triple rows of serrated teeth gleamed as they scanned the assembled commanders with unsettling intelligence. Behind them, a Vorkan pup, still the size of a full-grown earth tiger, padded silently, its 6 legs moving in perfect synchronization. General Cathren of the Praxian Alliance dropped the holographic projector he'd been holding. Commander Chen, High Admiral Zorik's translator, crackled with barely suppressed alarm, his tentacles coiling defensively. Explain. Now. Sarah glanced down at the Krathix on her right, the one she'd named Razor, and made a subtle hand gesture. All 3 creatures immediately sat, though their predatory gazes never left the room's occupants. Apologies for the delay, High Admiral, Sarah said, her tone professionally neutral. The transport bay had a minor decompression scare. I couldn't leave them unattended. Unattended. Vexthor's voice box emitted a sound somewhere between a hiss and a screech. Those are Krathix death spawn, and that thing behind you is a Vorkan hunter-killer. They're not pets, Commander. They're weapons-grade organisms from Category 9 death worlds. Sarah's expression didn't change. They're also sentient juveniles who've been displaced from their home planets by the Zalthar invasion. Sir. The room erupted into chaos. 17 different species began talking, clicking, humming, or otherwise vocalizing their objections simultaneously. Commander Threlek of the Irinian Defense Fleet stood so abruptly his chair clattered backward. This is madness, Threlak's translator boomed. Humans, we have tolerated your bizarre pack-bonding tendencies, your insistence on befriending species that would naturally hunt you. But this, they saved my life, Sarah interrupted, her voice cutting through the din with unexpected force. The room fell silent again. 3 weeks ago, during the evacuation of Krath Prime, my rescue shuttle was compromised. These 3 pulled me from the wreckage and defended my position against Zalthar shock troops for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. Razor, the larger Krathix, made a low rumbling sound that might have been contentment. Sarah's hand absently moved to rest on the creature's scaled head. High Admiral Zorik's skin flushed through several colors that Sarah's translator helpfully noted, indicated deep concern. Commander Chen, these creatures are juveniles now, but in 6 months they will be fully mature. The Krathix are responsible for the destruction of 4 separate colonies. The Vorkans wiped out an entire research station on Helion 3rd. They cannot be trusted. With respect, High Admiral, Sarah said, pulling up data on her pad. The Krathix destroyed those colonies because they were being used as breeding farms by the Zalthar. The Vorkans attacked Helion 3rd because your research station was conducting neural experimentation on captured Vorkan adults. She looked around the room. These species aren't mindless killers. They're survivors. Just like us, that's different, Catherine protested. Humans are from Earth, Sarah finished. A Class 12 death world. 1 classification higher than Krath Prime. 2 classifications higher than Vorka. We evolved alongside creatures that would terrify most of the species in this room. And we didn't just survive. We thrived. We learned to coexist. To cooperate, she gestured to her 3 companions. These younglings understand pack dynamics. They understand loyalty. They understand that survival isn't just about being the strongest. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself. The Vorkan pup, Nova, Sarah called her, chose that moment to let out a sound somewhere between a chirp and a growl. Several commanders flinched. How did you even communicate with them? Vexthor demanded. Krathix and Vorkans don't have conventional language centers. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Neither did Earth dogs when we first domesticated them 20,000 years ago. Or cats or horses. Humans have a gift for reading body language, for understanding emotional context beneath vocal communication. It's how we survived on a planet where everything wanted to eat us. She paused. Well, that and stubbornness. High Admiral Zorik was quiet for a long moment, his tentacles undulating in a pattern Sarah had learned meant deep contemplation. The Council will never approve this. Weaponized predators under human command, They're not weaponized, Sarah said firmly. They're refugees, orphans, and they're not under my command. They chose to stay with me. There's a difference. A distinction without meaning, Threlek muttered. Is it? Sarah challenged. Every species in this alliance chose to join. We didn't conscript you. We didn't force compliance. We offered partnership, and you accepted because working together made us stronger than the sum of our parts. She looked down at Razor and Nova. This is the same thing, just on a smaller scale. The silence that followed was heavy with uncertainty. Commander Vexithor was the first to speak, his voice box producing a resigned whistle. I suppose, he said slowly, that if any species in the galaxy could pack bond with juvenile apex predators from death worlds, it would be humans. It's possible, General Keithran added, his fear seemingly giving way to reluctant fascination, that this could provide unprecedented insight into Krathiks and Vorkan psychology. Information that could prove valuable in diplomatic overtures once this war ends. High Admiral Zorik's skin shifted to a neutral blue. Commander Chen, your team will be your responsibility. Any incidents, any casualties, any diplomatic disasters will fall entirely on my shoulders, sir. Understood. The High Admiral gestured toward an empty section of floor near the tactical display. Then please join the briefing and keep those creatures under control. Sarah nodded and made another hand gesture. Razor and the other Krathiks, Shard, she'd named him, moved to flank her as she approached the display. Nova padded behind, all 6 legs carrying her with predatory grace. As the briefing resumed, Sarah caught several commanders stealing glances at her unusual companions. Some looked terrified, others appeared curious. A few seemed grudgingly impressed. It was, Sarah reflected, exactly how early humans must have looked at the first wolves that chose to sit by, their fires 10,000 years ago. Dangerous, unpredictable, potentially deadly, but also potentially family, and humanity had always had a gift for turning potentially deadly into fiercely loyal. It was, after all, how they'd survived Earth and how they'd survived the stars.